Hello and welcome to the IGDP, which stands for the Indie Game Developers Podcast. Name's Hayes, and on this podcast we will discuss the experiences and life of indie game developers as they work towards making their dream games a reality. And hopefully we'll learn something along the way. In this episode of IGDP, we have our guest Adrian Nieto, a mobile game developer and programmer from the company The Frozen Machine. We'll talk about what it takes to call yourself a game developer, all about how Adrian got inspired to make games himself, the mobile market, and how to monetize your game. We also talk game jams and design philosophy, how to approach wanting to do game development for a living, the game reading rush and the inspiration behind it, and how Adrian avoids burnout. Enjoy. So, Adrian, we know each other from NVC.
Yes.
Kinda. Well, indirectly, we know each other from NVC. And you're a mobile game developer. I know that much.
Yes.
So,
well, I would like to think of myself as a, just like not really just a mobile game developer, but although I don't. All right, sorry. This is gonna be a bit of a rambling to start, but
go ahead.
I've never truly called myself a game developer. Even on my Twitter bio, if you see it, it says game developer in the making.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I don't think of myself as a full game developer. It's just like I think before I give myself a title, I want to like feel like I've made it.
Yeah, so you want to prove yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not saying, for anyone that listens, I'm not saying that to make it I need to, make it really big. Like I'm not saying like I need to make Super Meat Boy or something like that. No, I just like from a personal perspective, I have a set of guidelines, and if I go past those, I will personally feel that I've made it. So I call myself like a game developer in the making. I have not given myself the title yet.
So I mean that's a question already. Yeah, what are the requirements from a real game developer?
So just for myself though, like. Mm-hmm. If anyone wants to call themselves a game developer, that's perfectly fine. I have no issues with anyone using the title that they want. But for myself, I think I need to make a game that not only am I proud of, but that also got someone to, I guess, like message us or something, saying like, hey, like I'm a very big fan. I love the game. I've been playing it like crazy. Like, I guess like some sort of not recognition, but like a connection from someone else, mm-hmm. other than the team, obviously, any family members or any friends. If a stranger comes to me and says like, hey, I adore your game, it's amazing, I've been playing it like crazy since it came out, I'm a big fan, then that for me will be like, all right, if I connected with someone completely random, then I think I will start calling myself a game developer.
Mm-hmm. But would a review being left somewhere count, or is it a personal message? At what extent is it like recognition enough from someone else? How would they reach out to you for it to count?
I mean, yeah, like a review will be awesome, for sure. We actually got a review from Adult Lives Network. I believe they're based in the UK, for Reading Rush, and that was really awesome. Mm-hmm. That was really nice to see. But like, I don't guess, like, I've never really thought about it properly. I just know that, like, when I feel it, when like someone sounds like just so sincere. Like, have you ever been so hype about a game that as soon as you play it and finish it, you just go on like YouTube or Twitter or like anything, and you just go like, oh my god, like this game, it was amazing. Like, yeah. I've not been able to stop thinking about it, mm-hmm. since I beat it, or like it's like 4 a.m, I just beat it, like, oh my god, what a journey, or something like that. I think that's kind of what I'm waiting for.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, like for me, like when I beat Mass Effect 3, I just lost my mind, and it was like something like 3-4 a.m, and I just had to go on Twitter and say, "Wow, what a journey this was." So maybe that's my own bar that I shouldn't be setting myself so high for, but I don't know. That's my personal thing. Yeah.
I understand why, but it's I wouldn't say it's dangerous, but as you can tell, like as you say yourself, it's a bit of a high bar to set just to be able to give yourself that title. As long as it doesn't become like a Sisyphean journey that you'll never reach it, because then maybe that compliment isn't good enough, or it didn't come through the right channels, or he's a friend of a friend, so it doesn't count. And it'd be a dangerous,
no, and like whenever we go to game jams, or whenever people ask me like, "Oh, what did you do?" Like, I'm a game programmer. I feel that that's fair to say. I've been making games for a bit over 10 years now, I think. So like I've been coding logic for games since I was in university. So I do call myself a game programmer all the time. When people ask me, "Oh, like, yeah, I do have a game company. I have that with 2 more friends." So like it's not like I'm completely taking myself out of the equation and I'm being really hard on myself. I'm just like I don't want to call myself a game developer or a game designer until I feel like I've earned it.
Okay.
And hopefully that time will come.
Yeah, I mean, it's a respectable opinion to have, because some people, I mean, in the software engineering world, people go on like learn coding in a week courses on the web, and they're like, well, I'm a software engineer now, and they can write 1 line of JavaScript. It's kind of cringe.
Yeah.
It's,
and I think it's funny that you mentioned that, because maybe that's exactly where it's coming from for me. I know a lot of programmers who think that they're like amazing programmers, and they're like software engineers or even like junior engineers, and it's because they spend like 1 college course on programming. It's like, oh yeah, like I know programming now. It's like, well, okay, sure. If you wanna go there, all right. Be happy, I guess. But it makes me feel weird.
Yeah, it's one of those topics where, what is it? No, it's not the Doppler effect. Dunning-Kruger effect. Because people do it for a week, they think they're an expert. Then you do it for 4 or 5 years, and you realize I'll never be an expert at this. And then 5 years later, you might be like, I'm an expert at one very specific thing within programming, and then you're happy about it.
Yeah, and then you just roll with that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, all right, this is what I do for the rest of my life now.
But yeah, I had a bit of intended structure here.
Sorry.
No, don't worry about it. But yeah, I was going to ask, tell us a bit about yourself, your age, like, do you have education, whatever you want to know about who you are, except for being not a real game developer in your own eyes.
Yeah, for sure. So, so my name is Adrian. I'm 30 years old. I became interested in making games when I played Mega Man X back in 80 something. I can't put the
I don't remember
actual day now. But I was 6 years old and I played Mega Man X for the first time. It just blew my mind, and I wanted to make that same feeling for people. I went to as a 6-year-old, hey, like, I want to make games. Like, you don't really know what that entails. So when it was time for me to go to university, I was just like, all right, I have 2 options. I can become a computer engineer, and I'll become a programmer. That's what you need to make games. You need to know how to code. Or I'll become a chemist engineer, and I'll just spend the rest of my life with solutions and stuff, and I'll play games instead of making them. So I was at the university. I was ready to enroll on whichever. When I got there, they were like, "Oh yeah, like if you want to go into the chemistry, if you want to go into chemistry, you need to take this test first, just to see if you can actually get in." And I was like, "That's a lot of work. I don't want to do that. I'm just gonna become a computer engineer instead.
Easy.
Yeah, it was really early in the morning. I think the university opened at something like 7 in the morning or something like that. So I've been awake since like 5:30 or 5, something like that. And now, like, no, I don't have the head to think of doing a chemist test right now.
Mhm.
I'll just become a computer engineer. And I thought that's all you needed. So I went really hard into all my programming courses.
Mhm.
Not knowing, one, that I don't like engineering, like, at all. Two, I don't fully care for programming. Like, it's fun, but like I don't think it's where my heart
No, but it
really
gets the
lies.
job done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm 100% hey man, if it works, the code works. Let's just move on to the next thing.
Oh, okay. That's not very
Um,
engineering of you.
No, gosh, no. I do plan. I love planning. I try to plan as much as I can. But as soon as time constraints starts to creep in, and something doesn't work, and I have to make it work,
Mhm.
I'll just drop the engineering and get my hands dirty. So I'm that kind of programmer, which a lot of actual programmers probably hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But like, sometimes you gotta get things done.
Mhm.
So yeah, like, so I went to engineering for that. It took me 4 years
Okay.
to graduate from engineering school. Like I mentioned, yeah, like, I didn't like engineering. I wasn't really that fond of programming, and all the little classes in between, they were like really, really boring.
Mm.
Like networking and like databases.
Oh, but that's the cool
Um,
stuff.
oh no. Like, it's not that I hated my time in university, but I was more excited to play Mario Galaxy on Wii
Yeah, okay.
than I was about going to school. So, um, however, I was on some of my last semesters at university, and it was time to choose electives.
Mhm.
Uh, Finally, they opened an elective for game development. It
Mm.
was a new teacher that had just, I think he was teaching one of my final courses, but he was like new at university. I think it was like his first year or something. And he just wanted to open that elective. He also opened an elective for artificial intelligence that I also took. So he was like really trying to like push the curriculum forward, which I appreciate from him a lot.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it was an elective. You needed a minimum, if I'm not mistaken, a minimum of 8 people
Okay.
to have an elective open. Otherwise,
Yeah, they
you
don't
just
have it at all.
couldn't. Yeah, the school won't open it.
Mhm.
So I remember, and I was just like, all right, there's a lot of people busy with their thesis right now. So I'm gonna see if I can find 8 people that, even if they're doing their thesis, they still want to do this. So I went around and I talked to my best friend. I talked to like some other friends, and I just went around the entire campus convincing people to take this elective. Um, and in the end, it worked. I think I got something like 16 people or
Oh,
something like that.
okay. Impressive.
So yeah, because like I was casting my net like really wide,
Mm.
because I thought maybe some of these people will just not go for it, and I'm gonna, like, if I only focus on, I'm gonna get just 8, this is not gonna work out. So I cast my net really high, and to my surprise, everyone said like, oh yeah, I'll join for that, sure.
Okay.
So that was my first, like, let's say, proper experience with game programming and game development.
Mhm.
We divided the class in 2 groups of 8 to make 2 different games for the final project.
Mhm.
Um, my team was composed of people that I knew a little bit, and my best friend, who thankfully was there for me.
Mhm.
Um, and we designed a really cool platformer called Colorless.
Okay.
Um, it was a very simplistic game. I think we had like maybe like 3 or 4 levels or something like that. We wanted to implement a boss battle at the end, but we ran out of time for that. But it was basically a puzzle platformer where you were trying to bring color back to the world.
Okay.
And you had like this really cool like glove weapon thing
Okay.
that could shoot all 3 different colors, and they will interact with the world in different things. The blue color will allow you to basically do like a double jump, so you could like reach more harder platformer sections. You had the red one, which will stop enemies and platforms from moving.
Okay.
And then you had the green one, which was the opposite of the blue. Sorry, the opposite of the red. And if I'm not mistaken, we also gave the double jump ability the like ability to like hold more, like you could resist more damage, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
It's been like over 10 years now. So my memory is a bit hazy on that. But yeah, so that was like, it was basically those 3 colors interacting with the world and the enemies in those 3 different fashions. And like it was very simple. It taught me how to do some basic, like, I guess, like logic coding that will interact with other stuff. Which at that point, they never really taught. Man, like my university, bless it, but oof, sometimes the curriculum was very outdated. When we were never really taught how to make like things interact with other stuff and be like permanent.
But did you do this in an engine for this course?
Yeah, so we use XNA.
Okay.
Which is dead now, so rip.
Yep.
But it was a Microsoft thing, Visual Studio. I want to say like kind of like an add-on thing, and you will write everything on C#. And it's funny, but because like whenever I think about XNA and engines now, like engines have so much more power to make games. Like it's so much easier to make games now.
Yep. I mean, you barely have to touch a line of code anymore if you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like XNA was very much the opposite of any current engine. You had to code everything yourself. So like all the like the physics and the collisions, like the entire logic, we code from scratch. Like basically what the engine was giving you was like some math function. So if you wanted to calculate the randomness of something, you could do that thanks to the engine. But other than that, like there was nothing. Like you had to apply your own collision, you had to apply your own physics. So like we built the character, like a player controller from scratch for that game, and it was very eye-opening, that experience, because like it was even though the game was somewhat simple, it taught me how much goes into making a game. We were a big team. We're a team of 8. Is for a class is actually quite big. But we were lucky enough that there weren't too many hands on the pot at one point. So we all had our job very well distributed, and we had a lead, the guy who he's a really, really smart and awesome programmer. But he was also working on his thesis at the time, just like my best friend and some other people in the group. So I think the final like week or something like that, they were all like, "Hey, no, we gotta finish the thesis. Like we're like behind schedule, so I need to step away from this for a little bit. Do you think you can handle it?" And I was just like, "I mean, sure."
I don't have a choice.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, what else am I gonna do? So I that also taught me how to be like some sort of small producer at that point, that last week. So I was coordinating with the people that weren't doing their thesis left and right, like, hey, like I need this done by this time, and I took a lot more of the programming. Thankfully, there wasn't a lot left to do. So I finished what the few things that needed to be finished. I left someone else do the rest of the level layouts, so I didn't have to worry about that because I wanted to do the level design. Like that was my thing when I started that project. I love making levels, and I thought like, oh my god, like I can't wait to just make a platformer where all the levels are mine. It didn't. However, I did hide a few things there. Like I added a fake wall that if you could go and activate a switch, it will open a door, and that was all not part of of our initial
scope or
a scope.
project,
Yeah.
really,
That was just something that I wanted to add.
Yeah, because it's fun.
And yeah, exactly. And I can't believe it works that well super quickly. I was scared that it wasn't gonna work properly. So I added that, and yeah, like you will press the button if you somehow manage to get through this fake wall, because there was no indication that was a fake wall.
No. Okay.
So you just like had to jump into the wall. I was like, oh, I landed somewhere for some reason. All right, cool. So you will press the button at the end. It will open a random door. You will not see where the door was, so you had to backtrack and go into this very like it was like a really hard section that had like a really easy mode, like very Nintendo-esque. It had an easy way to get across on the top, and then it had like the really hard part at the bottom. And if you go through the really hard part, you will see the portal cake at the end.
Okay.
And that was it. Like there was nothing else for you to like. You couldn't get the cake, even if you could somehow glitch through the wall. The cake wasn't obtainable, and it wouldn't give you anything anyway.
No.
It was just for my own pleasure that I added. The cake was not a lie, and that I implemented the bottom and the doors opening, and I implemented this really hard section, and it was like a challenge for me. And I like when I got there, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Everyone is gonna think the same. Most people didn't even bother.
No, that's usually how it goes.
Until I told them that there was an Easter egg, and they were like, "Oh, okay," and then they will like try to get there. And like a lot of people did actually. So, but yeah, like that experience taught me a bunch. And when it was time for me to do my thesis in university, I decided to group up with a really good friend of mine, and we had like different game ideas, and we tossed them around. Some of them I will still like to make today. I think they have some really good potential. But because we also had to write the entire thesis, we're like, all right, now let's try to do something simple.
Yeah,
let's
manageable.
think of a game. Yeah, exactly. Let's think of a game that we both like to play, that we think we can actually accomplish. So again, using X and A, we decided to make a Tetris clone.
Okay.
The thing about this Tetris clone was that as soon as what's the name of the Tetris block? Tetrimanius? Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah, as soon someone will probably tell us later. As soon as you will place the Tetris block on the floor of the gameplay area, it will slowly start to fade away.
Okay.
So you will not be able to see. It will still be there, but you will not be able to see it.
You need to memorize.
Exactly, you have to memorize it, and the faster you play, the longer the full color blocks will stay on. Because as soon as you place another block, then it illuminates all the blocks that are already placed.
Okay.
So you had this like memory type mechanic in the game as well, with a like a really fast, because I always like how fast you can play Tetris when you get really good at it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to add just like, what if we make just really hard Tetris? So that was the thing, and it was a very simple project. We were our whole thesis was how to develop a game using the XNA framework. I guess it's called a framework, not really an engine.
Yeah, it's more of a framework. But it has graphics processing, right?
Yeah,
that was the thing. Yeah.
So it was using the XNA framework and how to publish it on the Xbox Live Marketplace. That was the scope of the thesis. So I got myself an Xbox 360, the first Xbox console I've ever owned, and I adore that thing.
Okay.
I got myself the developer license, and we were testing the game inside the Xbox, and like it ran, and like it played wonderfully. Like you could use the Google controller, and it was like awesome, and you could play a very hardcore version of Tetris.
Okay.
And that was amazing. And like it was a great feeling. And I was starting to look up how the like publishing process was, because we kind of like, it was like so hard to get something published back then for someone who has never made games. And because it was a Tetris clone, we had to follow a bunch of different like guidelines to not infringe copyright, to not have copyright issues with EA, which at the time owned the Tetris license. I think they still do. I'm not entirely sure, actually.
Okay.
But so because of that, we had to conclude in the thesis that for two people, it was too much of a hard work to get a game published on the Xbox Live Marketplace. However, we left a list of like steps you do have to take in order to contact Microsoft and get the license. And we basically left like a template on how to get the game published without actually publishing it ourselves. So we did a lot of research on how to do that, because we couldn't do it ourselves within the time. Yeah. But the game was still fully functional. You could still play it on the Xbox 360. And I was like very happy. Then as a very bad programmer who didn't know what version control was at the time.
Here we go.
Yes, I had a somewhat, I want to say like I had like a 2 versions old build of the game inside the Xbox. And then the most current one was, of course, on my computer. And I was like, all right, it's, the weekend before I have to present my thesis. I have to defend my thesis. So I'm going to build it on the Xbox when I get home. I was at a friend's house. He asked me for a favor, and I drove him to where he needed. And at that point, I was, what's the English word for that? Well, I was basically held at gunpoint to give away my car.
Wait, what? You were mugged?
Yes. With my computer that had my thesis and the version of all the latest version of the code inside the car, inside my computer. So yeah, that happened the weekend before I had to defend my thesis. So I freaked out, obviously.
Well, yeah.
I was more worried about my computer than I was about the car. I didn't really care about the car.
Where was this?
This was in my home country of Venezuela. For anyone that doesn't know, Venezuela, it's a place.
Yeah. I have a Venezuelan friend that complains quite a lot about the state of the country. So
yeah,
I know.
So, yeah, exactly. So yeah, if anyone is curious, just Google Venezuela and you'll find out. So this was like the weekend before I had to defend my thesis on Tuesday, and this was like a Saturday morning. So freaking out, obviously. I go back to university. I'm trying to basically explain the situation, and like all my professors was like, "Oh, like where's your backup?" It's like just here. Like I know I should have had a backup. I had a backup. one of the backups is very old and it's in my house. The other backup was inside my computer
The car
case.
that's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So like, can you please stop asking me about the backup? What do you think I should do? Like, I can still defend the thesis. Like, I know everything. I grabbed one of the physical copies that I print out. I was like, I'll make my presentation with this. And I have an old version of the game that I can show off to people. And they were like, yeah, sure. Like, just I guess show that version. I'm like, all right, cool. Thank you for understanding. So um, I get ready to do all that, and I noticed that for some reason, and I still don't know how this bug got into the game,
Okay.
but if you reach a specific score and you get to level 2 afterwards, the game will just like ramp up in difficulty and like skip to like level 5 or something like that.
Okay.
Making it like really, really hard and almost impossible. But at the same time, it will like disable the collision, like the death area, and you will just
Play forever.
the pieces will still fall, but they will just get on top of each other at the top, and you couldn't see them because there was it were over out of the screen area. So like I'm like all right. So I had a friend of mine who was inside the room, and I told him like, hey, whatever you do, die before you get to level 2.
Of course.
With a score lower than this. Don't ask me why, just do it. And he was like playing, and like, all right, I die. And then he would like start again on level 1. And he was like, oh, I die again. And he will just play dumb for like a long time. But it was enough to I guess like get the message across. And my teachers were like very understanding of the situation. They were happy that I was still able to defend my thesis properly, that I knew the subject, and for all intents and purposes, I had a working game inside an Xbox, which was the objective of the thesis anyway. So I got that, very happy. I got we use numbers for marks there. We got a 20 out of 20 on the thesis. So it was a really good day, and that was it. That was my university career. I was very happy. I immediately took a plane to Canada. After like as soon as graduation hit, I was like, all right, I'm out of here. And I left my home country to move to Canada with my family. They've been here for a few years already. I was still there because I was very set into, well, all right, I'm not going to lie. I was going to say that I was very set into finishing my career. That's a lie. I was in love with this girl, and I went back there because I was just like, I'm going to be with this girl. And I was with her for like a few months, and then we obviously broke up, as a lot of couples do. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll just finish my career now and then peace out out of this country.
Nothing here for me now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so I did that, and when I moved back to my family's house in Fort McMurray, Alberta, I was just like, I don't know what to do. I have this title of computer engineer. I don't really know where to apply it. I know I didn't want to work on the like the oiling companies here, because I never, and again, this comes from me not really liking programming as much, but I never wanted to become like a standard programmer in an office setup. Yeah, like a corporate programmer. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know what to do with this title. Maybe I'll go to college here and get another degree, because that's easier for people that are for like Canadians in the workplace to look through, like, oh, you graduated from this school, cool, than oh, you graduated from a school in another country. Okay, we have no way of confirming
Yeah,
that.
the validity
So
as
that
well.
was so that was my line of thought. Even though that's not how it goes, like they believe it. It's like, yeah, like if if you have the knowledge, you have the knowledge.
Mhm.
Cool. So I was thinking about that. I was just like, I don't know what to do. So I went to the local college there, and I was like, hey, like, do you have any like computer engineering or like computer science programs here at all? Like, oh no, we cancel them. I'm like, oh, okay.
What?
Why? Well, this is like an oil town, so we're basing our new curriculum and career opportunities here inside the college more oil
Yeah,
oriented
that makes sense.
because that's the future.
Yep.
I'm like, okay. And like the woman that was speaking to me, I think she could like really tell that I was like very distraught by this news. Like that was 100% not what I was expecting. So she was like, all right, like what do you want to do? I'm like, well, like I want to make games. That's the thing. Like I want to make games. So I don't know what I can study for that, but that's what I want to do. So like she got on the computer and she started checking. It's like, oh, there is in Edmonton, which is the capital of Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have that right. Oof. I hope I do.
I don't know.
There's this like game development certificate program that they have at NATE there. Like, are you interested? So I started like looking at the course description and layout, and I was like, yeah, I think this is exactly what I want. So she printed out the page for me, and Edmonton is 6 hours away from Fort McMurray, whereas where my parents were living, right? So she printed out the sheet for me, and I went back to my dad. So like, hey, there's this like a program in Edmonton. Like I really want to check it out. I know it's 6 hours from here, and I have not been living at home for for like 4 years now. And I know that it might be like a bit too expensive, but like I would like to like pursue this. Can we like go and check it out? And he was like, yeah, no, of course, yeah, let's go. So we took a road trip to Edmonton. We went to NATE, Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. And like I remember when we parked and I was checking the campus, I was like, oh my God, this is like so much better than the other campus too. It was like my first like real experience with a big college in North America. In South America, at least the one that I went to, it wasn't like super small, but it wasn't like at this scale.
No, okay.
So I was like very surprised by that, and I was like freaking out, looking at everything, and it was a great time. So we went there and we asked like, hey, like what are the requirements for this? The website doesn't really mention them. So they said like, oh no, yeah, you can just enroll. I'm like, oh, all right, that's gonna make this a lot easier than I thought. So yeah, so I enroll for that. And then on January of 2012, I moved to Edmonton by myself. And I started attending college for game design, and it will really shape like where I am on my life right now. For quite a few different reasons. So number one was that my instructor for game design essentials, that was the name of the course, was a BioWare employee, which at that point I didn't know that BioWare was in Edmonton. Yeah, so I was just like, I was blown away. Like this guy, he was like cool, like he was a
real game dev dude.
Yeah. Imagine if you will see like a not like a biker dude. Have you seen the Avengers films?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm probably the only person to say no.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I let's not get into that right now. But I'm trying to think of another. Well, he had like this like really cool bike vibe to him, but not
Okay.
like not like a biker
Not a leather
guy.
jacket.
Yeah, it's just like the leather jacket and like the really cool gloves and like
Okay.
the aviator glasses.
Jesus.
He was bald, but he was just so cool.
Okay.
And I was just like, oh man, like who is this guy? And then he starts talking. It's like, yeah, no, my favorite game is Super Mario Brothers 3. I'm like, of course,
That is a
great
pretty
pick.
good game, yeah.
Yeah, and he just starts geeking out about games. I'm like, how can you look this cool and also like video games? What's happening? So he started talking like, yeah, like I'm the lead combat designer at BioWare for
Uh-huh.
Mass Effect 3, and I was just like, what the f? Like, are you kidding me? So I had played a little bit of Mass Effect 1
Mm-hmm.
at that point, but I never beat it.
Oh.
I thought it was like a bit too slow, so
All right.
not really for my taste. But when I saw that he was going to be my instructor for the next 3 months, or 4 months, something like that, and he was working. Mass Effect 3 had not come out yet at that point,
No.
so he was still working really hard on the game. He was also I believe, a level designer for Mass Effect 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, no, I need to catch up. I need to play all the Mass Effect games, and I need to play I need to beat them before 3 comes out, so I can play 3 as soon as as soon as it drops. So I went hardcore. I bought Mass Effect 1 on Steam. I think I beat it on like a weekend. Then I went and I hunt down a copy of Mass Effect 2, also for PC, but a physical copy because I like my physical games. Even though it doesn't really matter too much
Well, not
for
anymore.
PC games. Yeah, exactly. But like I still got it. And I play. Oh my god, I played through Mass Effect 2 like nobody's business. And I remember it was very exciting going to class early because he will be there, and I could talk Mass Effect with him. So that was really cool. And I will always like geek out about my playthrough and like where I was and like the decisions that I was making and all this. And then yeah, like Mass Effect 3 dropped, and I think like 2 maybe 3 hours from beating Mass Effect 2. So like the game dropped, I pre-ordered it, obviously. I went to pick it up, I brought it to school. I asked him like, hey, like could you like sign my copy? And he was like, I'll do you one better. Do you mind if I take this? And I'm like, no. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll just bring it back signed by everyone on the team. I'm
Oh,
like,
jeez.
what? Yeah, sure, please take it. So he brought it back next class, just completely filled with signatures, top to
There are
bottom,
quite a few
front and
people.
back.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. How did they fit that on the fucking like, packaging?
Well, I mean, it was filled with signatures. It wasn't necessarily the full team.
No.
But it was like he like basically like passed it around. It's like, hey, like this is for one of my students. Like, do you mind signing it? So I had like most of like the really like the lead people, and then some of like the junior designers and junior programmers and stuff like that sprinkle around. But there were a lot of signatures on that thing, and to this day, it's one of my most precious possessions. Like I display it, and I love displaying it. I just love that I own a signed copy of Mass Effect 3 from the team at BioWare. So so yeah, so like I that was my first experience here in Canada, going to college, learning game design from someone who's not only been in the industry for like over 10 years at that point. I think he was like 15 years or something like that. Not only that, but like it was someone who was very inspiring and knowledgeable. It was just like the best way to, I guess, like if you want someone to hype you up about like getting into game development, like he was the guy. So it was, it was an amazing experience, and I learned how to, like make a game design document, how to make a pitch for a game, how to work with constraints, which I think is something really important that a lot of people don't necessarily do. And this is like something that I will always be thankful to him for, was that our first assignment was to design a game that will work under the restrictions of the 80s.
Okay.
So, you had your NES, the N tail of Atari, some arcade games, and they had to work on that, right? Like you could not make like, I'm making an open world game. Like, no,
Or
like,
any 3D game,
yeah,
really.
exactly. Like, how are you making? How are you making an open world game? Like, are you nuts? Like that will not work in the 80s. So that was really cool because up until that point, I remember, like, if I had a cool idea, I will always just keep trying ideas into it until I was happy with it. And that's perfectly fine, right? But learning to scope something down that much made the design process like, I don't want to say more challenging, even though it is, but like more fun, like more entertaining. It was just so cool to think of things that could go into it, that you cannot sacrifice, and the things that, I would love to add this, and then you will like really think about it. It's like, but that will not work with the technology at the time, right? So you take this out, and you're left with a very condensed game that you made, that you created, you designed it by yourself, and I just think that's like really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot to be said about modern games. That there's a lot of focus on a lot of different things, and then you'd end up with like a steaming pile of shit.
Yeah,
because you can tell that they didn't focus on anything particular, like gameplay or just the regular game loop or graphics or storytelling, and it's just a half-baked piece of shit. And then you're like, I don't know what the point of playing this was. Because, I mean, it is said that limitation breeds creativity, but at the same time, with those very small games, you don't have a lot to do. So, or you don't have a lot of resources to work with. So, of course, you need to, how do I make this the best game with what I have? And that is always a good exercise. I think that's also why all, like, the game jams are so good. Like with Surgeon Simulator coming out of that, too, because you have a limited time frame. So you can't do, I'm going to do an open world, randomly generated fucking roguelike with, all sorts of shit, because you don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
And that's really where the best ideas are born.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm very much on the camp that, with the whole talk about like next gen and stuff like that. Not that I'm not excited. Like I am beyond excited. I'm very sad that Halo Infinite is getting delayed. But I'd much rather get a really good game instead of a game that was rushed to get out. So I'm in that camp of, if a game looks really beautiful, but I'm not having fun playing it, I will just not like it. However, I
have the same.
I can play a game that looks like just average at best, but it's just so fun to play that I will like just love it, like as simple as that. So that whole like exercise of designing a game in the 80s really shaped how I approach game design. Because whenever now I design a game, right, I always think of just the fundamental first. What are the things that I cannot sacrifice on this game? And then I think about, all right, which platform do I want it on? And I work around that like Reading Rush is very much a result of them that game design philosophy, which is like it's gonna
Yeah.
be a mobile game. How do I make it in such a way that like everything will always work as intended, and when you're looking at it, you're like, okay, this is what I have to do. Like like you get it somewhat like right away. And then I still remember when Miyamoto was presenting Super Mario Run, and he said the things like, "Oh yeah, like I wanted a game that you could like play with one hand while you're eating a sandwich." I'm like, "Holy crap, that's it!" So I'll get into that later a bit more, but that really influenced Reading Rush as well. But yeah, like in you mentioned game jams and how you only have 48 hours, so you have to work
Yeah.
with a lot of restrictions. Yeah, like I've been to a lot of different game jams as a participant and as a just as an observer. um and the games that usually stay with me are the ones that they knew they had a little like just like a very constrained time frame, and they set out to do something simple but like
Yeah.
complete, rather than, oh, we're gonna have like this really big thing. And
Yeah.
um I don't want to like I don't want people to think that I'm insulting game jams, but there is a very big difference when you're looking at game jam games, where when you see them you go, oh, that is a jam game, like that's 100% a jam game. And then you see
Yeah.
others and you say like, wait, that was really a jam game? Like, okay. So like the ones that surprise you are the ones that they knew the constraints and they knew the time frame, and they push themselves to the limits to get something like really creative out of it,
Yeah.
but they didn't try to make it bigger than it should have
Yeah. They didn't do too much.
been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I've been to like a lot of those game jams where I see games by like really big teams, or and that's something that was always funny to me when you see like a team of like 6 or 8 people on a game jam, and you see the final product. It's like, oh well, like only the first level works, and there
Yeah.
is a bug at the end, so you can technically beat it. And like you just sit there thinking, it's like, all right, so like there were 8 of you, how did this take you all so long? Like, so it's very surprising sometimes for game jams, and I just love when people, I guess, set out to do something very simplistic. So that design philosophy, it's something that I hold very dear to my heart, and I always try to, I guess,
Yeah. To stick to it.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's weird because I think like I'm always trying to design a game for the 80s, and then I increase it a little bit so it looks more, like more modern, or like it will fit with today's standards. But I always like
But it's still an 80s game.
yeah, I always try
Okay.
to make it like very very simple,
Yeah.
and then go from there, I guess.
Okay. But I am gonna have to go into my questions now.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. But it's more specifically about Reading Rush. And yeah, we haven't actually discussed what Reading Rush is. It's all they know is just it's mobile game.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is Reading Rush? What's the gameplay? Yeah, what is it all about?
So Reading Rush is an 8-bit style arcade puzzle game for iOS and Android, where rows of alphabet blocks are falling from the top of the screen, and your job is to basically click it or touch them in order on each row, to in alphabetical order, to eliminate them. It's a very simple premise,
There's a bit of Tetris in there, I feel already,
Yeah,
with the falling blocks.
yeah. It is a very simple premise that gets surprisingly hard when you're playing it, because you think about like, oh, I'll alphabetizing blocks. That sounds very easy, and like it is for the most part, right? Like when you are like,
Yeah, if you have time to recite the alphabet,
yeah, exactly. Like if you go like A, B, C, D, E, and you need to alphabetize them in order quickly, and you have like, let's say like a row is C, A, D, B. You can like quickly tell like, okay, it's A, B, C, D, right? And like it's easy like that. But then as the game progresses, you get more letters added to the rows. So you will see like A, D, F, G, and you're like, wait, which one comes first, the G or the F? And you have to start reciting the alphabet. So it's again, it's a very simple premise, and it's like I very much like games where you can get it right away, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna be good at it in any way.
Yeah, what is it they say? Easy to learn, hard to master.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that idea came out from my niece. She was just arriving to Canada. She was 2 years old, and like I said, 2-year-old from South America. She knew some Spanish, but she didn't understand any English, and she will eventually had to go to school. And I was trying to teach her English, and that wasn't going very well. So I was just like, all right, can I design a game that will like help her in some way learn English better? Now she's like 11 years old, and she knows English way better than me. She doesn't have an accent either, so like she just sounds like any other Canadian here, which is amazing. So the game took a bit too long to make. But I was still very proud to work on that project. I designed it for her, but it was also kind of like for me. I like puzzle games. I like arcade games. Again, the whole design process of the 80s. If you were to put that game on an NES, maybe the sprite limit will kill you, but it will technically still work to some extent. So that's where that idea came from, and the game changed a lot. Like I made like 4 or 5 different versions of the game when I was working it. The game originally looked very different. However, I still think there is an idea for the original version of Freedom Rush that I would like to explore someday. But the game evolved a lot into what it is, what it ended up being. And it may have started as a project for to make my niece happy, but it ended up making me like really happy. I love that game. I think it's really fun, even if I'm a bit biased in that. I like looking at the icon on my phone whenever I scroll through my apps. I love opening it. I love the music, my team. It's just wonderful. I cannot ask for a better team, and I feel so bad for how much I pushed them to get this game done. And how much they push me too, because I don't know if this happens to you, but it happens to me a lot, and maybe some other people will relate as well. But I love starting projects a lot more than I like finishing them.
Yes, yeah, me too.
So whenever I will get stuck while working on Reading Rush, I will close Unity and open a new project, and I will start to tinker with something new. And it's not a good thing. Don't believe it is, but it's also not a bad thing, because that allowed me to avoid any sort of burnout on the project. The project took about 2.5 years. Like a lot happened in between. The game should not have taken that long. And that was one of the reasons my teammates were feeling a bit burnout on the game, which, of course, why when you're working in the same game for 2.5 years. But the one of the ways I avoid burnout was whenever I will get stuck, I will just start tinkering with something new. And it's not good. Again, I need to make that clear. It's not good to always be starting new projects, but it's also not bad to like step back from what you're working on.
Yeah, and take a break.
Take a break, because like you don't want to start hating what you're working on. And that happens to a lot of people, and it hurts me whenever like I'm excited for like a friend of mine working on a game, and like I see it, I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to play it. And then like a few months go by, and nobody likes to get asked, oh, how's the game going, for you to respond with like, it's going right. Like nobody likes that.
No.
When you get asked that question, you feel terrible. When you realize that you asked that question to someone, you feel terrible too. So it's just a bad time for everyone. So that's where I think, stepping back for a little bit, working on a prototype for something else, it's like a good, like a little like good experience.
It's a good intermediate thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Because like when you're working on something else, like and always try to make something like small. Just think of a game jam game, but with no like real limitation other than you should just go back to your main project.
Yeah, your guilt is limitation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like always, like step back, work on something like a little small that it's fun, so you fall in love about making games again. That way, when you're satisfied, you can just go back to your main project and just tackle whatever you're stuck in. And most of the time, you'll push through and you'll find the solution that you couldn't find before. And you'll continue with your journey, and your main project is going to plow along. I made about 3 or 4 prototypes of other games while I was working on Rain and Rush.
Okay, so one every half year, pretty much. Wasn't it 2 years you worked on it?
2.5 years, yes.
2.5. Okay, so yeah, almost.
Yeah. So, but like me prototyping stuff, at least from my point of view, didn't necessarily distract me from working on Reading Rush. What I spent at most working on any of those prototypes was like a full day. And a day in the big scheme of things doesn't really
no impact it
exactly
much.
Yeah, and especially when like I work on like 4 different prototypes, I didn't spend a day on all of them. So like at most I waste like 2 days on all of them. So but that, like every time I finish a prototype and I tested it, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I could go back into Rhythm Rush, and I will not feel burned out. I will have fallen in love again with game development. I could continue tackling the project and just like push through to get it done. But I still needed help from my team to put me back on track. Because a Rhythm Rush.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to work alone on a game too and staying focused if no one else is like keeping up with you.
Exactly. Yeah. And Rhythm Rush, I over designed it at the beginning.
Okay.
And so that took like a big chunk of time to do that. And like I over designed it, but I didn't plan it properly, which is there's a big difference there. You can have how everything is gonna work in the game done just fine, but if you don't set out realistic goals on how long things are gonna take, or which things should get done first to move other
Yeah,
stuff.
and the complexity of the separate things is also very hard to know from the
Exactly.
start.
Yeah. And we at the first machine in my company, we always try to learn something new when we're working a game. So in this case, we were learning how to use in-app purchases inside the app,
Okay.
and how to create an economy for the game. And this is something that obviously, like, we didn't know it, and that's why we tackled it. But we learned the hard way how the mobile market really works. And
Yeah.
you gotta remember that at this point we had already published 2 different games on iOS and Android.
Okay.
But they were free games with ads, or there was a paid version without ads, and the paid versions were $1.
Yeah.
So for those 2 games, we were pushing 2 different versions of the same app for each game on each platform, for a total of 8 different builds.
Yeah.
So for Rhythm Rush, we're like, no, okay, this is stupid. It's not sustainable to publish 2 versions of the game. So
No.
I want to add in-app purchases. I don't want those things to be like evil in any way. I don't want to be greedy. So in Rhythm Rush, you can play the game normally, and you'll earn your coins, and with the coins you can unlock characters, and you can unlock skins. So the game never at any point asks you to spend $1,
No.
unless you really want to support us. Then you can buy coins, and with those coins you can buy, like, you can directly buy the character you want, or you can buy the skin that you want. We didn't want to add like randomness or loot boxes or anything like that to the game. So that was great, and I was feeling great too, that I was making a game that had all these things, but it wasn't evil. That didn't work. The mobile market, they really like to spend money. Like, it's just that they like a free game where, yeah, you can do cosmetics and you can do other characters, and they like to spend money, like small chunks of money, but a lot in the end.
But it adds up.
Yeah, into buying stuff to then buy stuff inside the game. So I remember we were showing the game to a few people who have done successful mobile games. And they were like, "Hey, how come the like purchase button for buying coins is not on, like, on the end screen?" I was like,
Yeah.
"What do you mean?" It's like, well, yeah, like, if I want to buy coins, why can I buy them on this screen? I'm like, well, you buy them inside the character selection screen where the store is.
Where you can use them?
Yeah. And they were like, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You should put that button everywhere. I'm like,
Yep.
Really? And they're like, yeah, no, yeah, like, like kids, they know these things, and they always try to look for where to like earn coins and like buy stuff, and like, yeah, that's just how it works in the mobile market. And I was like, okay.
You can't have morals in that industry.
Yeah, exactly. 100% that. And I was very much still with my morals intact. I not wanted to do any sort of like shady, not shady, but like, I guess, like the normal.
It's predatory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I remember, so like the game finally releases. A friend of mine who is he called himself a whale on the mobile market. When he likes something, he will just spend money like crazy in that game. He has to spend so much money in Pokemon Go.
Oh God.
Yeah. So he knows, like, he was the guy to like hear.
He's the guy you want to convince.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
And he was like, why are you giving me so many coins for watching an ad. It's like, oh well, because that's supporting us in some way, and no, I want to reward you. It's like, I mean, that's fine, but you're like giving me a lot of coins. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he went to buy like coins directly from the store, and he was like, oh man, like the last one, which is like the best value one, that's what we call it.
Yeah.
It's like really cheap and it gives you a lot of coins, and you can basically get like all the characters. Like I'm like, yeah, you kind of like made it that way. Like, oh,
how much did the most expensive one cost? That
it was $2.99 US.
Okay, so that's barely anything.
Yeah, exactly. And you get, if I'm not mistaken, you will get 600 coins plus 200 bonus coins for buying that one. Which each character we set the price at 200 coins. So with 800 coins, you start with one character. You have 4 characters to unlock. You unlocked all the characters.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was just like that. Like, that's a really good value. I think you should have given less coin. I'm like, man, like, so like this guy is just completely destroying my biases towards the mobile market, and it took really rush to not be financially successful for me to like finally hear him out properly and realize like, oh, I should have left all my biases out of the door and just make the game the way the market likes it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many like predatory tactics that they use for mobile games, and even in like games like Valorant and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You buy packages, of course you get extra points or whatever for buying the more expensive package, and always they convert it to some other currency, so you don't know what its real world value is, because they don't want you to know how much money you're actually spending when you hit that fucking loot box.
Yeah.
And they also make sure you always buy an amount that doesn't equal to 0 if you buy stuff in their store. So you have like 100 whatever currency they have left, and then you feel like, yeah, but I have 100, so I could buy the small pack and then get like just this thing, and then I don't have to buy the big pack just to get the item, and then you have a few left over, and you're caught in this infinite loop of having a few of the currency. And all those things, of course they do them on purpose, and it's horrible, but it works.
Yeah, and not only it works, but like that's exactly how people expected it to work, and they accept that.
Yeah,
and anything,
but not everyone's aware of it.
Yeah, and anything other than that, and people go like, "No, I don't like this. Like, why don't you let me spend money?" It's like, dude, what's happening here?
That's kind of weird.
So, so that was a big of like a glass breaking in my head. Like I know better now. However, I still like what we did with Reading Rush. After the initial release, we also learned something new, which was how to add DLC characters to the game. So we added 2 characters afterwards, and I really like the character gallery that we have in the game. I think they're all like really like fun to watch and fun to play with. Something that I wish I had done again, because of how the mobile market works, and how I wish I had known this then, was that I could have on like year 1 release the base game first, like the base arcade mode.
Yeah, bare bones, just one character.
Yeah, with like but that time we had like 2 maybe 3 characters done. But yeah, like I could have released that game with like 3 characters and only the arcade mode, and then at the adventure mode, which is what I really wanted to have in the game. And in the game, so you choose your character. All the characters have 3 different kinds of powers. they all recharge the better you're playing the game. So the more rows you clear, the faster your powers charge, and you get like a multiplier if you're playing really well. So that increases your score, which in turn charges your powers a lot faster. And you have to beat the rest of the characters, kind of like in a Mortal Kombat style, one at a time. They're always randomized though. But yeah, you have your 3 powers, and they have different effects. Like they will either like deal damage, or they will screw with your AI opponent in some way. Maybe they will power you up, and you have like a health bar, and you basically have to win by making their lives go back to 0, or and not get overrun by the blocks. And in the adventure mode, the difficulty also increases as you start with your standard set of 4 blocks, and A to E or F. And then you get either more letters. The letters also shift in groups. So like when you're on level 3, you're not seeing like A, B, C, D anymore. You're seeing E, F, G, blah, 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 right? So that way you're like looking at more of the alphabet, without always having to rely on the easy letters at the beginning. So that's like an extra level of challenge there. And then the game, as it goes on, they will also add like a 5th block to the game. So now not only do you have like a more complex pool of letters, but you also have a longer row
more
to clear.
Of them.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And then when you defeat all 5 enemies in adventure mode, you get to the boss battle, which is against old Mrs. Sordo, and she is like a space alien teacher who is just chugging the blocks from space down to you, and she has I'm really proud of how my friend Rayford, he completely nailed what I wanted the boss battle to be and made it better. So like I designed like something like simple yet challenging. He took that and just turned it up to 11, and like the end result is so good that it makes me sad that a lot of people don't necessarily reach the boss battle. Because
I have to admit, I tried it today, and I couldn't get past the 3rd in the adventure mode, because I was like, I didn't realize how bad I was at the alphabet until I played it.
You start to realize like, oh, maybe I don't know the alphabet as well as I thought it
Jesus Christ. Yeah, Jesus. But I haven't seen the end, and I played it for, I think, an hour or 1.5 hours. I don't know what your intended playtime was to get there, but...
It was supposed to be like a 20-minute session, yeah.
Yeah, well...
But anyway, so that boss battle, she has like 3 different like attacks that she does, and in really good like Nintendo fashion, whenever you hit her, she starts to turn red, right? So you hit her 3 times, like in any Mario boss battle, and she's gone, and you defeat her, and she gets more and more red with every hit. So, but like in the boss battle, it's like a bit different from like the main game. You're still alphabetizing blocks quickly. You still have an HP bar, but instead of charging your powers, you're charging basically like a rocket energy. So you're trying to power up this rocket so you can shoot the rocket and it hits her. And Rayford added all these really cool things where when the rocket is fully powered up, the game stops. So like, oh, just click on the rocket now. So you're not like wasting time and energy clearing a line that you don't need to clear anymore. So then you shoot the rocket, and if there's any blocks inside the gameplay area, the rocket just like bursts through them and starts to like breaking them, and they make like this really cool explosion, and there's like little gifts everywhere, and then it hits her and she gets upset and she starts to like banging on the gameplay area, and like the screen shakes, and it's like this really cool thing. that I just love. Like, I remember when I played it for the first time, I was like, man, you took my vision and like you just made it yours, and it's so much better now. Thanks for that. But yeah, so like I we could have had all that part, all that adventure mode, that boss battle. We could have added all that later on if we had studied the mobile market better and realized that it's not how like complete your project is, this is something that we are very proud, that we proud ourselves in doing. Which is we don't publish the game unless it's like fully polished. Like there's no bugs. We're very strict about that. Like everything, it looks fine. Everything is where it's supposed to be. Everything behaves properly. So because of that, like the mobile market is more about like incremental, regular updates.
I think it's the same with the PC market these days. Like all the early access stuff is becoming very common.
Yeah, but that's early access, right? And that's completely different. But like if you were to publish just like a game, right? And you publish an incomplete game and a buggy game, people are just gonna like drop it right away, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's true, right? Like a lot of games, they do like extra DLC, and like they do updates to always keep it facing on the Steam page or the PlayStation Network or whatever store you're looking at games from. But on the mobile market, if you want to get like feature, for example, you want to show them a roadmap of, hey, this is when we're going to publish the game. We're going to do updates in this time frame, and these are what the updates are going to be like. If you don't show them that, they don't really bother with you, because like if you're just publishing a game and just dropping it later, then what's the point?
Why? Yeah, then what's the point? Yeah, exactly.
We're not gonna get any money from this, right?
No.
So I wish I had known that back then, because otherwise I will have made Rhythm Rush in such a way that I start with the base stuff and then I just keep on adding, and I will have been able to add stuff for like years and years to come. But because I didn't know that, my team was just ready to move on from the game, sadly, and that's what you do. Yeah.
So it's like you're not planning on doing any development on it anymore?
No, we are fixing some stuff right now. Google has been very weird about stuff lately. They changed their their whole like policies and stuff like that. So we're trying to finish what they're asking us to do right now. Even though they approved it on the first place, which is weird. The game's been out for like over 6 months, and right now they're asking us to change. Whatever. But no, like officially, we're not doing any more updates in the game. I do have some other characters that I will have liked to implement into the game, other skins that I will have liked to implement in the game. But there are no plans to actually do any of them. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, now we went through a lot of it, but I know Reading Rush is kind of at its end of development cycle now.
Yeah.
But what was your original target audience for the game? Is that something you considered when you developed it?
So, this is something that we as a team and as a company, we are always aiming to please one of us. We're making the games that at least one of us will be obsessed over. And if we like fulfill that goal, then we will call the game successful in our eyes. Which is true. Like I love Ruin Rush. I'm very proud of it. I love playing it, and I think from that point of view, it is successful. But again, we also learned how games should not be done for yourself. You need to figure out a proper, and you do need to do proper research on the demographic and the target market and all those things uh, that people tell you games need. Um, and it's funny because I was looking it through some of them. I've been cleaning my house around, and I stumbled upon my notes from that very first game design course I took here in Canada. And one of the notes say, and this is coming directly from our instructor, was that games are expensive to make. Because of that, you don't make games for yourself. Always research the target audience and who the game is for. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like,
Oh no.
no, we literally be making all our games to satisfy one of us instead of actually try to be. And this is where it sucks that game development is like it has to be a big business.
Yeah.
Because I originally started doing it for the art of it. I thought games. I still think that games are art, and you make art because you want to, not because you are.
Well, you need to make a financial gain from it.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not making them because you're expecting it to make bank. That's the wrong approach for any sort of art at all. However, yeah, games are really expensive. The time commitment that you put in, the number of hours, like the number of hours, the energy, the money that you put to pay for whatever you need to pay, either be that promotions or like making the trailers or getting art outsourced, like all that, like, right, like it takes so much to make a game. It's really expensive. So like, sure, make games for the art and because you love making games, but you also gotta think that, if you don't believe the game is gonna be financially successful, then like maybe move on to something else, like, or maybe only do it part-time, right? Like we went full-time on Reading Rush, right? Like I quit my job for the longest time, and I was just focusing on making the game. Um, and because of that, I depleted most of, if not all of my savings
Yeah.
to survive, to live comfortably while I was making the game. So I will not recommend that. Like I will recommend, work part time or work full time, and then work on your game on the side. When you feel like it actually has legs to become something, then you can evaluate if you want to make that jump or not. But be very careful, because for right now, for example, right, I am, because of the whole pandemic situation, I'm looking to get a new job. Right, I was working part time so I could finish the game. I was working part time as a manager at a retro video game store, and because of the pandemic, I live with someone who is in high risk of dying if they get sick. I decided not to go back to my work. Right, I told them, hey, I don't trust the people um, that live in my city enough. Every time I go out to get groceries, I see like maybe one person wearing a mask, uh, which is not really good.
Is it mandated in Canada that you must wear one?
Yes, but it is imposed by like stores and locations and stuff. Yeah.
Aha. Okay.
So because of that, I was just like, hey, I don't feel like I can go back to work and feel, one, safe, and two, not stressed. Like I will constantly be afraid that I may have gotten sick, and then I brought it home and I got my grandmother sick. Right. Um, I don't know how many Latinos you know, but Latino guild is really fucking hard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
yeah, I understand.
so like I don't want to be that guy that killed my grandmother. Like I don't want that on my conscience. So yeah, so because of that, I've been like looking for a new job that it's that allows me to work remotely. Yeah, and um, sadly, because of how much effort and time I put into my game development career, um, all my projects are private. Everything that I've worked on, it's been like uh, either for the company, for my company, or for another company. It's all like proprietary and stuff like that. And a lot of jobs actually ask you to have a public GitHub of things that you've worked on. And
Yeah, that's like an American thing. Like we don't do that in Europe.
yeah, and it sucks, dude, because like like what was the last thing that you coded? Right, I work on Raiden Rush for 2.5 years. I coded a lot. I can't show you any of it though. Like that's all
Yeah,
private.
exactly. And then they just have to take your word for it, and that
Exactly.
doesn't work.
So, but like all the locations are asking you to have a public GitHub, and like that sucks, man. Like I don't have a public GitHub. I until recently I forgot that I had a GitHub account. We use Mercurial for repository, so like we were doing something else entirely. So yeah, like if I can give advice to anyone, is like do work on games, do make it for the love of it, do make it for the art, but try not to overstand yourself financially, because it's not like a good place to be, especially how the world is right now. So
yeah, it's worse now than ever.
yeah, so oof, no.
Yeah. So you've answered a few of my questions already. Yeah. So you've mentioned that you have a team. How many people are you?
So the Frozen Machine is my company. We are a team of 3. We met. All of us met at Nate when we were studying game design there. It's funny because I met the first guy I met was Rayford. We were waiting outside like another class to start, and you know the time is going by. We don't see anyone else. The teacher's not here. I'm like, man, this is really strange. So I look at my phone. It's like, oh, it doesn't start until next week. Oops.
Oh.
So cool. So Rayford and I leave, but like we like kind of start chatting there. Like I learn his name, he learns mine. We talk games a little bit, and then we leave. And then Alex, who's the other guy, we were also obviously on the same courses, and it wasn't until we started working. It was what was it called? I think it was like Game Programming 1 or something like that. And at this point, Refer and I had been like talking for a while. We've like kind of like become pals. We were playing like some games together at school, and we work on some of the projects and bounce ideas to each other. So Refer and I were working on like our projects together for that class. Alex was working on his own, but because we couldn't get the labs open like all the time, I will like literally stay inside the classroom for like a full night. So working as much as I could. I will sometimes sleep inside the lab as well. And Rafer will stay there sometimes too. So we're working the same projects, obviously. He will stay there, and we'll have like shifts. Like he will stay there, and I will go to sleep for a couple of hours at home, come back, and I'll keep the lab open. That way, we'll always have access to it. And Alex, even though he was working on his own stuff, he was staying with us a lot of those nights too. So we started forming a relationship there where like we were testing Alex's game, he was testing ours. We're like always talking, and we're like sharing pizza. We'll like get like a massive New York style pizza. We'll like just power through that like most nights. And when that class finished, Rayford and I started talking, and we're like, all right, like the group that started this certificate, it's becoming like smaller as time goes on. By the end, it was actually only the three of us who were still in the program. Yeah. So Rayford and I started talking. It's like, hey man, I really like Alex. I think like he's like very he's very smart. He's very talented. Like, do you think that we should like just include him into like try to start doing like class projects together and stuff? And Rayford, of course, he like 100% agreed. So we talked to Alex, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like I'll join you guys. We'll start working on projects together." And so for the rest of the classes moving forward, it was always the three of us, with fewer and fewer people in the groups. Like people like changed to like a daytime. We were only having like nighttime classes, or people like just completely drop out. But it was always the three of us working really hard together to get all these things together. And at one point, we were like, all right, we've been using individual names for our projects. We all had like our own, what is it? Like our own branding for our games, our own imaginary companies. Um, so we're like, should we like maybe like start creating one with ourselves? So we started like tossing stuff around. We spent like I think like 2 days writing on the whiteboard on one of the labs, just writing random words that we thought sound cool, and then we started like merging them to see if like they will fit in any way. Um, and then we got Frozen Machine.
Frozen Machine.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we like the idea of Frozen Machine because one, like we were in Canada where it's always snowing.
Everything's a cold.
Yeah, exactly. So Frozen kind of like made sense there. Machine, it's kind of like it had this like idea of like, oh, like maybe it's like a hidden machine, like it's like you don't know what the deal is with it, like it's frozen, and you're trying to discover it. And we were like the three of us working together. We were kind of like a machine because we all had like very specific areas of expertise. Like Rayford, like me, he was a computer engineer. He is a computer engineer. So he is a programmer like myself, but he also knows music. So all the music in our games has been done by him. Same with sound effects and stuff like that. Alex, he's just a very talented artist, 2D, 3D, you name it. He everything that looks pretty in our games is thanks to Alex. And yeah, like I was the programmer, the other programmer guy, and what they say is I'm the social guy. Because like everybody knows my name, everybody knows my face. I am called by some people sometimes as the Frozen Machine guy, and I have to remind everyone that it's three of us. It's not just me. But I'm apparently like the social butterfly of the group, and because of that, like I handle the social medias, like I interact with people, and like I'm usually the first point of contact when people try to approach us. Which is fine. It's not that I like being the social one, but whatever.
You can hire someone sometime.
Yeah, but that was fine, right? Like we all had our own separate set of skills, and together we came together very well. So because of that, the whole like machine aspect like really worked, and we used like a gear in the logo because gears, like connect and make, yeah, and they make machines move. But we still weren't like 100% sure about the name until for some reason we added "da" at the beginning, and they were like, "Oh, that Frozen Machine, huh? That sounds better." I'm like, I don't think it sounds better, but all right. So I was about it then, and that was the beginning of the Frozen Machine as a company, and how not as a company but like as a group, and how our decision making process will go on in the future. If 2/3 agree on something, we move on with those 2/3. So if we all agree, perfect, but rarely we all do. So we have that I guess like decision making clause there.
And
Like,
democracy there.
yeah, exactly. So when we graduated from Nate, we finished all our courses and all that. We were like, hey, I really like working with you guys. Should we try to make this a thing? At the time, only like BioWare was like the one big company here in Edmonton. Was the only company that was like sometimes hiring stuff, right? And even I had applied to BioWare a few times for a few different jobs. I got some interviews for QA. I remember going to one of the interviews, and it was only me and another guy. And this guy is like, I could hear him talk during his interview because he was not that far away from me. And he was saying like, "Oh yeah, like I go to university and I've worked on these 6 different games." And he brings the iPad out and starts showing the games, and I'm like, "Huh?
Oh shit.
Okay, I have none of that." So I thought it was a great idea for the 3 of us to start joining together, because we will learn. We'll start gaining experience. We will we won't have to basically make someone else's game. We will always be making the games that we want to make. And if at the end it all fails, at least we have something to show for it, right? So yeah, we started taking business courses, and we set up. We're an official incorporated company that pay taxes, has an accountant, and has a lawyer, and has all the things. Yeah. So yeah, that's the 3 of us. Alex, Rayford, and I funded the first machine together, and we've been together. I mean, since Nate, really, but officially as a company since 2016, I think.
16. All right.
2015,
4 years.
2015, sorry, 2015.
15.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 years. Jesus. And you've released more than one mobile game.
Yes, we've released.
Working together.
Yeah, we've released 3 mobile games together under the First Machine banner. We've released Tuna Cycle was our first game. It is
Tuna Cycle.
Yes, it is a story about life, love, and fish, where you're helping Luis and Luis, the tuna, get ready for their big fancy date. And you do that by putting them on a unicycle and balancing them into an old style like 1920s cartoon setup, and you try to collect everything they need to wow their other fish. Yeah. This is a very silly game. It's an infinite runner, as a lot of first time people do. But it uses the gyroscope of the of your mobile device to balance the tunas. You balance it left and right, and you just try to get the highest score possible. Now that was a really fun game to work on.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, it took us about 6 months to develop. And we say 6 months because, like, in actual time, it took us like about a year, but 6 months of actual development, because during that year we also were setting up the company. We were meeting with lawyers, we were meeting with accountants, we were like doing all this, we were like looking for office spaces. So we were doing all these other things that also add up time to development, but they weren't technically development. So.
But I have to ask regarding that part.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not something you want to answer, then don't. But how did you find the financing to start? Did you just all bank out all your savings and go for it? Or how did you afford it?
We all pitch in into it. Rayford was the one that pitched in the most. At that moment, he had been working full time for a engineering company. He was a back-end coder, So he had the most savings, and I don't think we will have gotten anywhere, or as far as we did without him having to put so much money up front. Um, I put a little bit at the beginning. I think I put like five, maybe $6,000 originally. And then Alex, he had Lily's savings, so he put a little bit less. But we all pitch in to get that starting, and we're still 100% self funded. We Everything that we've done, every convention that we've gone to, every promotional material we've gotten, everything we've paid from our pockets. We pay the accountant and the lawyer yearly. That comes from our pockets. The offices that we've gotten from our pockets. Like everything is from ourselves, and that's something that, again, we were things have changed a lot since indie games first started, right? Um, Back when I started making games, like Braid had just released, right? And Braid being done mostly by just Jonathan Blow, without really much of a publisher or anything. We all wanted to do that, and that's one, not healthy. To completely run in how indie games are done now. Like, I understand if people don't want to have like an evil publisher, so you always have to find the publisher that is right for you. But we were at a conference in Banff last year, and I met with a few guys from like Raw Theory and like Devolver, like some of the companies that are publishing like indie games lately, and they were some of the nicest people I've ever talked to. Yeah, they were wonderful, and they were always like sharing their experiences like publishing different titles. And I was also able to talk with people that have published through them, and they keep full rights of their
IP.
yeah, unless they want to sell it later. That's really up to them. But yeah, like they were like really nice publishers. And if you're making a game and if you think that has like a lot of potential, and you've already invested like some money and like a lot of time, like approach a publisher that you think will be a good fit for your game. Like, there is nothing wrong with that. It will really help you not feel pressure about the money that you're spending. It will take some of that load off. And
Yeah, and no one's forcing you to sign anything right away. I mean, you can always weigh the offers.
yeah, always like have a lawyer and have them read the contracts and whatnot. But yeah, like it's a lot better to have a publisher that understands and it's a good fit for your project than you using all your savings for something that might not be successful just because you didn't have the money to pay for like the promotions and like putting it on YouTube on people's faces and stuff like that, right? Which is where like a lot of games fail.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're 100% self-funded, but we're now looking into other avenues for the future.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you about that later. We're almost reaching 2 hours though, so I have a few more questions I need to ask you.
Go for it.
So my original plan was to ask some practical questions first and then the personal afterwards, but it doesn't. Don't worry about it. I mean, you can go on your own, which is good because then I don't have to be like, all right, here's the next question, and then you answer politely, and then it ends. But a question I find interesting is there a specific game mechanic or attention to detail in a game that you adore? And just want to give an example. For me, it's the progressive music in Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3, that when the boss changes phases, then the music also changes. Like, yeah, the music changes along with it. Is there a mechanic like that or something you really adore in a game that is like just a tiny thing that people don't really notice, but it makes a difference?
I don't know if there is a specific mechanic itself. There is a bit of like game design that I really like that some indie developers do. Nintendo does it all the time, which is if on your first level, if you can understand everything about the game, and you can go through it, and I guess like get how like everything works and what you can do, what your character can do, then like that's really good for me. That's something that I always pay attention to, right? Like the first level of Mega Man X, which is my favorite game of all time. Everyone knows the first level of SMB1, or the first level in Shovel Knight as well, right? Like those are some examples of first level in games that are like, oh, I know this now, like, right? Like you get it right away. So that's something that I always keep an eye out, and I really notice it when someone makes like a really good first level. I always go like, oh, this guy's put like some real
He
work
knows what he's
into this.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a video a long time ago. I don't know if you may have watched it yourself, but Egoraptor, back when he was still making animation. Do you know who he is?
I think so. He's one of the guys from.
He pretty much only does game grumps now,
Yes,
like a Let's
exactly.
Play
That's
channel.
what I was. I was trying to remember. Yeah.
He made a video in a series called Sequelitis, and he explained that concept exactly, the one you were discussing, that the first level, and I think it was Mega Man X he took as the example, that it's so well designed that you don't have like tutorials popping up telling you this is the jump button, this is how you left click, this is how you shoot. It was just, it felt natural, it was instinctual, and you learned everything you needed to know in the first level, and it was designed in such a way that it forced you to learn, but it wasn't overbearing, and it wasn't impossible either.
Yeah.
It was like the perfect thing, and he would call that conveyance. The game was good at conveying how to play the game just from the level design. So yeah, that's it's good that you've noticed that, and I also very much adore when they do that well, because it's really shit to play games that just shit like a control scheme in your face, like a picture of a keyboard, and you're like,
Why?
how do I play this? It's like reading a novel.
I'm not remembering any of this in 2 minutes. Like, why would you just throw everything at me? Yeah. You mentioned that video now, and it clicked now, and I do remember watching it, and he did something that I remember like not even thinking about when I always thought about like first level, always showing you like all the mechanics and whatnot, and was the how and I thought it was really funny on Mega Man X's main menu, when you're always looking to the right, so you know that you have to go to the right, and then when you shoot, he shoots a green blaster, but then when you start the game, you're shooting the little pallets, so you know like, oh, I can charge this, okay. So like, and I remember like watching that and thinking like, damn, this guy's on another level. Holy crap. I because I always thought of third levels in games, and I always refer to Mega Man X and Super Mario Bros. Brothers 1. And then later on, when I play Shovel Knight, I always mention Shovel Knight as well. But I like that's like something that never occurred to me to even thinking about. And it's like, oh man, no, this guy knows what he's talking about. And it's amazing how like how good he was at like describing all that. And yeah, his video, anyone should watch it because it's amazing. But yeah, that's the one thing that I notice on games that I just adore. Like if a game has a really good first level, oh my god, I'm hooked. You have me there. Like I'm gonna play this game until I beat it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of the elevator pitch for the game as well. Like if the first level's shit, you don't want to play the game.
Oh no, yeah. Who does?
Like Elex or Gothic or any of those. 2 more questions, and then I think we're gonna have to call it. Three actually. So, what is one thing that you absolutely detest about being a game developer? Being a game developer.
Ooh, I mean, I hate how much of a business it is now. It used to be that, like games are getting like more and more expensive to make, and there is always this whole thing where if it doesn't sell like 10 million copies, then the game is not successful. Which, hell, like I remember Tuna Cycle has something like 10,000 downloads. I'm like, oh my god, I'm over the moon. My game has 10,000 downloads. So yeah, I think that will be the one thing that I don't necessarily like. How right now it's about
Money.
making money. Yes, it's about making money, and you've lost some of the creativity that it comes from just making games, right? Like
making something fun.
Yeah.
It's lost its charm.
Yeah.
I can agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, what is one thing you love about being a game developer?
How well, I will say like the people that I've met that really align themselves with how I build this whole game making world. Because like when you make games, you find a lot of people, be that on Twitter or Facebook or when you go to game jams or whatever, right? You always notice people that will think a lot like you, if not the same. And it's not that I just like people that agree with me, but I don't like when I see people who call themselves like, oh yeah, like I designed this game and that's all I did for my team. It's like, okay, so it was a group of 4 and you left everyone else to do the coding and the art and the music.
Yeah, the hard work.
Yeah, and you just let them do everything, and you were just there to make sure, like, no, can you like change this? Like, that bothers me a
Managers.
lot. But the people who like really love making games, right? And that I've met I've made really good friends on Twitter, like I made over Discord, like when I go to game jams or Facebook groups and stuff like that, right? Like people who like really like games and like they adore like all these different bits. And when you're like working on something with them, or you see them working on something and they're like really excited about what they're working on and they can't wait to show you, I think that's like 100% my favorite part, the connections that I've made over the years, that I try to keep up. I'm terrible and I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone. I'm really bad sometimes at replying, but I notice you. And like whenever you share something cool, I'm usually the first one to hit like on Twitter. So I'm sorry if I'm not always talkative or responding, or I take some time, but don't think it's because of you. Think it's just me being awkward and introvert, and I need to recharge myself a lot before I start talking to people. But I love meeting people that genuinely love games, and they because like sometimes when you're meeting people and they say like, oh yeah, like my favorite game is I don't know, Horizon Zero Dawn, right?
Yeah.
And they're just like, you don't like Neo games, don't you? Like, and that's fine, but at the same time, it's like, do you appreciate anything else other than pretty graphics and big expensive budget games? And sometimes that will surprise you. It's like, like Zero Dawn is my favorite, but man, I would love to make a like Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced game. Like,
yeah, okay.
I'm like, oh, okay, now we're talking. Like, tell me more. Like, why did you like that game so much? Why would you like to make one? So yeah, like connections, man. Like we're all in this together. We should all try to work together. I in on Reading Rush, one of the characters in the game is actually a character from a game a friend was making. I approached him and I asked him like, "Hey, I would like to have the nerd squid in the game. Can I make it happen?" And he was like, "Heck yeah, dude! Like, go for it." Um, so like work together, collaborate, right? You see this a lot on YouTube where like YouTubers are collaborating with each other. Like, I would like that to happen more in video games. Like, hey, like, do you have a character that I can turn into a 64 pixel character that is cute that I can add into my game? Heck yeah, send it to me. Like, can we make this happen? Like, please, you can have my game too. Like, you can have my characters too if you want to add them to your game somehow as a costume or something, right? Like please, like, and tell me when it's out so I can download it and try it for myself. So, um, yeah, connections. That's my favorite part. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then, yeah, I guess this will go back to the question I asked about what you detest. If you had the ability to change one thing about the game industry, what would that be?
Oof. I mean, I don't think I can change how much of a business it is right now. However, I will very much like to have more well-designed games. There is nothing wrong with like prototyping and making like any sort of game that you want and like putting that out there. But I feel like there is a very big like there is like 1,000 games coming out on the Steam weekly. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
How insane is that, right? Like, and a lot of those games don't ever get seen by anyone unless you're looking for them. And like a lot of them are just like I bought like an asset pack and I just threw everything together and I published.
Yeah, asset flips.
Yeah. Or I made a game jam game that like 3 people like, so I'm gonna also publish it on Steam. Like like the game industry should like try to avoid that a little bit and just design more. Like if a game is very well designed, then we'll have fewer games but more complete,
high
quality games. And I just wish games weren't so expensive to make nowadays for like AAA as well. Right now, if you don't have a Hollywood actor voicing one of your characters, then why bother? And like, I don't like that, right? Like,
no,
unless the guy like really likes games and he wanted to join the project because he loves them, that's completely different to me. But like, why would you hire like Robert Downey Jr. to voice an Avenger game if he doesn't care for games? Like, no, like just hire someone else that sounds like him.
I forget what the name is, but I worked on as a quality assurance on Beyond Two Souls. I don't know if you know that game.
Yeah, Ellen Page.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's people who don't really care about games at all, but they use their likeness and their voices, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
What's the point?
And that makes the game so much more expensive to make. And because of that, then you don't get as much return. And I think that's just fundamentally wrong. Also, now I'm complaining a lot, but
don't worry.
the whole thing where people are like, oh, I'm just gonna wait for a sale for a game, and then they complain when games increase in price. Because that's the rumor right now, right? Like that games next generation are gonna be $10 more pricey, at least in America. And people are like, oh, that's too expensive, blah blah blah. It's like, well, sure, it's true. $10 more is, I mean, like a $60 game in the US is already quite a big chunk of change. It's 80 in Canada. If you increase it $10 in the US, it's gonna get like $100 per game, per new game here in Canada. I agree with all that. But at the same time, why did you wait it for the game to be $5 on the bin before you pick it up?
Yeah.
You don't want games to be more expensive, but you're waiting for the game that you really want to play. You're just waiting until it's cheap enough to buy it. And then you just watch someone play it on Twitch. Like, don't complain then. Like, I don't like that at all. How people are complaining about the prices. I'm not gonna be happy when the prices increases, but I understand why they are sad. But it's just how cost goes now.
And I mean, I think games haven't really been popular for that long that people realize that you also have to adjust for inflation because prices are going to fluctuate with the economy as well.
Yeah.
But, whatever, it's teenagers who buy games mostly. So if it's more than their mother's credit card can pay for, they'll get sad.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
like back in the 80s and part of the 90s, right? Like games were not a set price. There were some games that were like $90. There were some games that were like $40, right? And back then, you will like. I mean, I don't know if your childhood was probably different than mine, obviously, but I
played a lot of games.
Yeah, well, I will like get one game, and that will be the game that I play for like 6 months straight. Right? I will get a game for my birthday. I will get a game for Christmas, which those are kind of like close together. So I will be playing the same games until next year when I turn when I had a birthday again. Sometimes I will like do a lot of chores, and I will like convince my parents to get me like another game. But like
it's the same thing.
Yeah, but like I will be playing like no more than 3 games a year, and that was okay, right? So yeah, like buy the games when they come out, but don't buy all the games. Just buy the games.
Yeah, but it's so hard.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
Because the market is so saturated and we're getting so used to the on-demand thing that if the game isn't the most fun game in the world, then it's not worth spending 20 minutes playing it.
Yeah.
And it's just, times change.
I'm terrible at this too, because I have a collection of Switch games that is getting out of hand. And I've played like, if I play like 5% of them, that's a lot. How many I've beaten? Let's not get there.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah, so you're part of the problem.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I wish I could change it. Like, I wish I wasn't like this, but yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot more questions, but maybe if you want to come on again, I can ask you them some other time.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm down for that.
But I'm gonna have to finish off by asking you, what else do you have planned for the future now that you're done with Reading Rush?
So that's kind of a loaded question.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because of this whole situation in the world right now, we have not been able to meet as a group like we used to, obviously. There is a lot happening in our personal lives at the moment as well. So we're all trying to figure that out, while also trying to figure out the future of the company. So the company will still, the first machine will continue on. We'll still make games. However, the kind of games that we make, how we make them, and how we approach everything as a business, it's going to change because of how much we learned from developing Reading Rush, the post experience after Reading Rush, and just a general better research of the industry and just the world really. We have a plan that has us very excited, but we're approaching it very cautiously. We're not gonna try to just say like this is the next thing that we're gonna make. Now we're taking a step back and try to define it properly before we make the jump. If that works, great. It will mean that we can continue doing things in the future. if not, then we'll see what happens. But right now we're in a lot of like planning, a very big planning and design phase, I will say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't really blame anyone for being in a position where it's hard to work together or anything during these times at all. So
Yeah, and like again, we've published 3 games together. We've learned a lot. We're a company that is still in business. We've seen a lot of people that started around the same time as us, who are either not working together anymore. They just closed down, or nobody heard from them ever again. So yeah, so like we're very proud that even after 5-ish years, we're still in business. We're still friends. We're still all
that's quite
doing
impressive.
things together. Yeah. So the next phase is something that we want to make it right. We are looking at all the possible possible options, and how we approach them. I am very excited on what we are thinking about doing. Um, Finger crossed that it works. But it will also mean that how much time we can invest, and that will depend on how like the whole situation in the world changes for the rest of the year, whether or not we find better jobs, that we feel that we have some money coming in for ourselves, which in turns into money for the company.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. Nothing to announce at the moment,
Okay.
but lots of plans, and I hope to be able to announce something soon. Yeah.
Perfect. And then what's do you want to say what socials you have? You have Twitter, and where can people find you and your company?
Yeah. So you can always email us, contact@thefrozenmachine.com. We're always checking that. If you want to send us a quick email asking any sort of questions, you can. Our Twitter is @frozenmachine. We couldn't add the "da" at the beginning there in Twitter. I'm mostly the one that checks that. So if you contact us there, I'll do my best to reply quickly. Apologies again if I take a few days. What else? On Facebook, we're not using that very much, but it's at the Frozen Machine on Facebook. Yeah, you can find us there. Again, if you message there, I'll get back to you eventually. What other social media do we have? Twitch.
Oh.
I might start playing some Counter-Strike on Twitch again.
Okay.
So if you want to chat about game development while I play Counter-Strike, you can do that. It's at the Frozen Machine as well. And I think that's all. Those are all the social media that we can pay attention to. We have other stuff like Tumblr, but nobody pays attention.
No one
to
uses
Tumblr.
Tumblr.
Yeah.
No one's saying anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you have the Froze, or you have Reading Rush on the App Store, both on Android and iOS.
Yeah. So right now, because of the policy changes on Android, we are waiting to publish another update of Reading Rush on Android. So it's not available there at the moment.
Okay.
You can buy Tuna Cycle and Boxer Stupid, our first 2 games, over there. I know I didn't talk about Boxer Stupid much here, but we can leave that for another day. They're just $1. They're really fun games. We really appreciate any support there. They're on both platforms. And Reading Rush is still available on iOS, so you can download it on any iPad or iPhone you have. So,
all right. Well, Adrian, thanks for being the first guest to bless us with your presence. And yeah, hopefully we'll talk again sometime, and then you can tell us what your plans are for the future.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, man. This was a lot of fun. I haven't podcasted in years, so it's good to be back.
Well, it was fun to try as well. We'll see how this goes.